A racist flight attendant thought she could bully an elderly black woman for her skin color, but what she didn't realize that she just made the worst mistake of her life. The hum of Skyward Elite Airways Flight 401's engines faded into the background as Dr. Amara Lawson settled into her first-class seat, her fingers grazing the leather armrest. At 54, her presence commanded quiet authority. A tailored navy blazer hugged her frame, her natural curls swept into a sleek bun, and her eyes skimmed a legal document, its pages glowing under the cabin lights. Around her, the opulence of first class buzzed with champagne toasts and hushed laughter, a world where passengers paid thousands to be seen as worthy. But Amara's worth was already etched into the airline's DNA. Flight attendant Caitlyn Hartman breezed down the aisle, her smile practiced and bright, until her gaze landed on Amara. A flicker of hesitation, then a dismissive glance away. Amara's request for sparkling water was met with a curt nod, though Caitlyn's pen hovered over her clipboard as if forgetting the order the moment it left her lips. Elite is a funny word, Amara mused, her pen pausing mid-sentence. It bends to fit whoever holds the power to define it. The seatbelt sign chimed. Somewhere, a white businessman chuckled, clinking his gin and tonic against a colleague's. Caitlyn returned, distributing drinks with a flourish, Amara's water conspicuously absent. The game had begun. The engines droned as Caitlyn reappeared, balancing a tray of flutes. She paused at seat 4A, handing a mimosa to the silver-haired man beside Amara with a grin. "Your usual, Mr. Whitaker," she chirped, then pivoted to the row behind him, delivering a vodka tonic to a woman in a designer scarf. Amara's empty cup remained untouched. "Excuse me," Amara said, her voice steady. "I believe I requested sparkling water." Caitlyn blinked, as if noticing her for the first time. "Oh, right. Water." The word dripped with unspoken "of course you did." She turned toward the galley, her posture stiff. Amara's pen paused over her document, a merger agreement for Skyward Elite's new sustainability initiative. She'd drafted it herself. When Caitlyn returned, she sloshed a splash into Amara's cup, the liquid hitting the rim unevenly. "There you go," she said, her tone saccharine. "Let me know if it's sufficient." Mr. Whitaker chuckled at a joke from the woman behind him. Caitlyn lingered, refilling his glass. "You're a loyal customer, aren't you?" she cooed. Amara sipped her water, her throat tight. She'd flown this route weekly for years. Never had a crew member pretended not to know her. The flight attendant leaned into the aisle, her voice carrying just enough. Some passengers just don't know how to appreciate first class. A beat. Amara's grip tightened on her pen. She underlined a clause in the merger agreement. All staff will undergo mandatory equity training. Not soon enough, she thought. The cabin lights dimmed for dinner service, but the tension burned brighter. Caitlyn returned, balancing a tray of roasted chicken and herb-infused couscous. She paused at Amara's seat, her smile razor-thin. "Ah, the special meal," she said, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "Let's hope it meets your standards." Amara's fork hovered. The comment dripped with insinuation. Picky, demanding, unworthy. She set her utensils down, her voice frost-veiled. "The airline's culinary team designed this menu. I trust their expertise." Caitlyn's smirk faltered. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Funny. I'd think someone like you would prefer simpler food." A beat. Amara's jaw tightened. "Someone like you." The phrase echoed, familiar and venomous. The flight attendant straightened, then tripped on the edge of Amara's seat, sending red wine cascading onto her blazer. "Oh!" Caitlyn gasped, theatrically clutching her chest. "How clumsy of me! But that color's too bold for you anyway, dear." The cabin fell silent. A man in 4B, a retired judge named Harold, cleared his throat. "That was deliberate. Ma'am, do you need—" Amara raised a hand, silencing him. Her eyes locked on Caitlyn, who now glowed with triumph. "No, Harold. This is my fight." Caitlyn sneered. "Harold? Familiar with the elite passengers, are we? Or just pretending?" She plucked a napkin from her apron, dabbing at the stain with exaggerated vigor. "Pity. That jacket probably cost more than your paycheck." Amara stood, her posture unyielding. The merger document lay open on her seat. A photo of her shaking hands with Skyward Elite CEO stared up at Caitlyn. The flight attendant paled. But Amara simply smoothed her blazer, her tone glacial. "You've mistaken me for the fragile one." The engines roared. Caitlyn's bravado cracked. The cabin's air thickened. Caitlyn, now trembling with misplaced bravado, leaned into the aisle. "You know," she hissed, loud enough for nearby passengers to lean in, "first class is for elite travelers. Maybe you'd be more comfortable in coach? Unless you're unfamiliar with how seating works." A collective intake of breath. Harold's fist clenched. Amara's reflection in the window showed her spine straightening, a lioness uncoiling. But Caitlyn wasn't done. She plucked the merger document from Amara's seat, waving it like a prop. "Still reviewing the menu, dear? Or is this," she squinted at the legal jargon, "some diversity initiative? How quaint." The word hung, sharp as shattered glass. Amara's eyes flicked to the photo of her and Skyward CEO, now in Caitlyn's grip. One more second, she thought. Let her dig deeper. Caitlyn smirked, misinterpreting her silence. "What? No retort? Maybe you're finally realizing that you violated Skyward Elite's code of conduct?" Amara interrupted, her voice steel-wrapped in velvet. "Or that you just insulted your employer's chief equity officer?" Caitlyn froze. The document slipped from her hand. Amara stepped closer, her tone glacial. "You saw me. You chose not to see me." The engines roared. Somewhere a flight attendant whispered, "Oh God, that's Dr. Lawson." Caitlyn's face drained of color. The cabin's silence was suffocating. Caitlyn staggered back, her clipboard clattering to the floor. Amara's gaze never wavered. She stepped forward, her voice cutting through the stillness like a scalpel. "You've mistaken your role here, Ms. Hartman. You're not the gatekeeper of elite spaces. You're here to serve all passengers with dignity." She plucked the merger document from Caitlyn's trembling hand, holding up the page with her photo. "I wrote this policy to dismantle the very ignorance you're displaying. And yet, you've ignored training, ignored me, because you decided my seat was a punchline." A flight attendant rushed forward, paling as they recognized Amara. "Dr. Lawson, we didn't realize." Amara raised a hand, silencing them. Her focus remained on Caitlyn. "You saw my face. You chose to see a stereotype. That's not a mistake. That's malice." Caitlyn's lips parted, but no sound came. The passengers, once indifferent, now stared at her with open contempt. Mr. Whitaker shook his head. "Pathetic." Amara straightened her blazer, the Skyward Elite logo catching the light. "You've had your fun. Now, let's discuss your employment status." The engines roared. Caitlyn's bravado crumbled. The cabin's silence fractured as a senior flight attendant rushed forward, her face ashen. "Dr. Lawson, CEO of Skyward Elite, we had no idea you were." Caitlyn staggered back, her hand gripping the seat. "CEO." The word ricocheted through her mind. The merger document. The photo with the CEO. She was the CEO. Amara stepped closer, her voice a quiet thunder. "You mocked my policy, Ms. Hartman. The one requiring staff to treat every passenger with respect. Including me." She tapped the Skyward Elite logo on her blazer, a golden phoenix, symbol of the airline's rebirth under her leadership. Caitlyn's eyes darted to the document, now clutched in Amara's hand. The header read, "Equity Mandate, authored and approved by Dr. Amara Lawson, CEO." A passenger gasped. Another whispered, "That's the Dr. Lawson? The one who rebuilt this airline?" Caitlyn's mouth opened and closed. I didn't." "You did," Amara cut in, her tone surgical. "You saw a black woman in first class and assumed I was an imposter. You weaponized my seat, my policy, my company, to degrade me." The senior flight attendant intervened, trembling. "Dr. Lawson, we'll handle this immediately." Amara raised a hand. "No. She will handle it." Her gaze bored into Caitlyn. "You violated company policy, federal anti-discrimination laws, and basic human decency. Effective now, you're relieved of duty. Caitlyn's knees buckled. Please, I have a family. And the passengers you humiliated have lives too. Amara's voice softened. Lethal. You had one job, respect. You failed. The cabin held its breath. Caitlyn's tears smeared her mascara, a grotesque mirror of the wine stain on Amara's blazer. Amara turned to the passengers. Skyward Elite apologizes. This behavior is unacceptable. Crew, prepare for an unscheduled landing. Ms. Hartman will disembark in Denver. A smattering of applause broke out. Harold nodded, approving. Caitlyn's whisper sliced the air. You're really the CEO? Amara smiled, cold and bright. And you're really fired. Denver's tarmac lights glared through the cabin windows as Caitlyn was escorted off the plane, her sobs echoing down the aisle. Amara stood at the front, addressing the silent cabin. Skyward Elite's strength lies in people, not privilege. Today, you witnessed why that matters. The senior flight attendant handed Caitlyn her terminated ID badge. Its lanyard snapped like a symbolic collar. Pack your locker, she whispered. Security will escort you from the premises. Caitlyn's mascara-streaked face turned to Amara. You'll regret this, she spat, voice trembling. No one will fly with you if you treat staff like this. Amara stepped closer, her tone ironclad. You insulted passengers, violated policies, and degraded this airline's values. You're not a martyr, you're a lesson. The passengers erupted in applause. Harold nodded. Well said, Doctor. Amara raised a hand, silencing the cabin. This isn't about vengeance. It's about accountability. Racism isn't a bad day. It's a choice. And today, Ms. Hartman chose her consequence. Caitlyn lunged forward, restrained by security. You think you're better than me? You're just a CEO who'll ensure no passenger suffers your ignorance again, Amara interrupted, her voice echoing. Now leave. As Caitlyn disappeared, Amara turned to the crew. Effective tomorrow, mandatory equity training begins. No exceptions. The engines restarted. Somewhere a flight attendant murmured, Yes, ma'am. 6 months later, the Skyward Elite logo, a golden phoenix, gleamed on Tasha Mitchell's blazer as she served first class. At 28, she moved with the confidence Amara had once displayed, her natural afro a crown, her smile warm but unyielding. Sparkling water, Ms. Lawson? She asked, offering a drink to Amara, now seated in seat 4A. Amara nodded, her merger document replaced by a Forbes cover. Skyward Elite CEO redefines elite, equity soars. Tasha leaned in, lowering her voice. Your training changed everything. Caitlyn's termination. It mattered. Amara's eyes softened. You matter. That's the point. The cabin buzzed. Diverse passengers, respectful crew, the hum of progress. No stains. No slurs. Just the quiet triumph of a phoenix rising. Have you ever encountered a situation where someone attempted to belittle you or exploit you because of your race? Share your experience in the comments. If you enjoyed this and want more content on inspiring Black stories channel like this, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching, and remember, courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the assessment that something else is more important than fear.